When we hear about global economic turmoil, it can often feel like something happening far, far away. But right now, for South Africa, it is hitting home with incredible force. We are smack in the middle of a perfect storm of external shocks. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means for the country and for you.
A brutal double blow. That's how people are describing this. And honestly, it's the perfect phrase for it. It's like a 1-2 punch. First, you have soaring global oil prices, and then bam, a plummeting rand comes right behind it. So let's get into what this combination really means for our economy and, well, for our wallets.
So what is this perfect storm we're talking about? Well, it's being whipped up by geopolitical conflict in the Middle East, and that's sending massive economic shockwaves all across the globe. But for South Africa, these shockwaves aren't just hitting us one by one. They're converging to create a particularly damaging situation.
And here's where these two forces create a really nasty, vicious cycle. On one hand, you've got global oil prices surging past $110 a barrel. At the exact same time, you have nervous investors around the world selling off currencies like ours, the rand, causing its value to drop. And a weak rand means we have to pay even more for the dollars we need to buy that already super expensive oil. See the problem? The higher import costs then put more pressure on our currency, and the cycle just keeps feeding itself.
Now keep in mind, this isn't happening in a vacuum. All over the world, investors are getting seriously spooked. And when they get spooked, they run for what they see as financial safety, established currencies and assets. Let's take a look at what that actually looks like in the numbers.
To really put this global panic into perspective, check this out. Japan's Nikkei 225 index, that's one of the world's biggest stock markets, it plummeted by nearly 10% in just 1 week. That is a massive sell-off, and it's a huge red flag signaling a widespread loss of confidence in the markets.
And of course, South Africa is not shielded from this. Not at all. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange dropped by 4% during that very same week. Now, okay, it's not as steep as Japan's drop, but it's a crystal clear sign that these global shockwaves are hitting our market and hitting it hard.
So the most direct consequence of all this market anxiety is a weaker rand, now sitting at R$16.80 to the US dollar. This kicks off something called imported inflation. And what that basically means is that anything we import, and that's a lot, from fuel and machinery to the phone in your hand, is priced in dollars. So when our rand gets weaker, we have to pay more rands for those goods. Plain and simple, prices go up across the board.
All right, so let's bring this down from the big economic picture right into our daily lives. Because the most immediate and, let's be honest, the most painful impact of all this is felt right at the fuel pump.
Just look at these projections. They are stark. Petrol prices could literally jump from just over 20 rand a liter to more than 28 rand. And diesel, which is the absolute lifeblood of our country's logistics and industry, it faces a similarly devastating increase. These are not minor changes, folks. This is a massive shock to the entire system.
Let me just be absolutely clear here. An 8 rand per liter increase in a single month would be historic. A jump of this size is completely unprecedented, and it has the power to cripple both household budgets and businesses. Full stop.
And as if that weren't enough, just when you think it can't get worse, it does. We have scheduled tax increases set to take effect on April 1st. Yep, hikes to the General Fuel Levy and the Road Accident Fund Levy are going to tack on another 38 cents per liter. It's just sheer bad timing making a terrible situation even worse.
Now, it's really easy to think this is just about how much it costs to fill up your car. But the reality is so much broader. This fuel shock is the trigger for an inflationary spiral that's going to ripple through every single sector of our economy.
And the reason for this giant ripple effect is simple. Just look at this. A staggering 80% of all goods in South Africa are transported by road. Our entire economy is basically built on a foundation of trucks, and all of those trucks run on diesel. So when diesel prices go through the roof, the cost of moving everything goes right up there with it. It's a simple and frankly unavoidable chain reaction. First, fuel costs for the transport companies shoot up. They have no choice but to pass that cost on to their clients, the retailers and manufacturers, through what they call fuel surcharges. And then, where do you think those costs end up? They're passed on to you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices on the shelf for everything from your loaf of bread to building supplies.
With all this pressure building, who's the one responsible for trying to navigate us through this crisis? Well, all eyes are turning to the South African Reserve Bank. And right now, they are facing the incredibly difficult task of walking a tightrope between trying to stimulate economic growth and maintaining financial stability.
And this right here is their core dilemma. It's a real catch-22. Should they raise interest rates to try and attract investors and fight off this inflation? I mean, doing that would help stabilize the rand, but it would also make borrowing more expensive for all of us, for already struggling consumers and businesses. It is a tough, tough choice with huge consequences no matter which way they go.
This decision is made even more complicated by the fact that the Reserve Bank has a new, much stricter mission to target 3% inflation. This policy basically forces their hand. They have to act more aggressively against these rising prices than they might have in the past. Letting inflation spiral completely out of control is simply not an option on the table.
So what is their most likely first move? Well, it's a strategy known as a hawkish hold. Sounds a bit jargony, but what it means is they'll probably keep interest rates stable for now, but send a very clear, very stern signal to the market that rate cuts are completely off the table and that future hikes are very likely if inflation doesn't get under control. It's basically a strategy of wait and see while holding a big stick.
Okay, so things look pretty challenging, I know. But it's not all doom and gloom. Despite all of these major headwinds, there's real reason for optimism. The South African economy has some fundamental strengths that provide a solid foundation for resilience, even in the face of a storm like this.
And if you need some proof, just look at this number. South Africa recently posted a trade surplus of over 9 billion rand. That is a powerful sign of a strong, globally competitive export sector. The fact that we are selling more to the world than we're buying from it points to an underlying health in our economy that's easy to forget about when things get tough.
So the path forward really involves a proactive and disciplined monetary policy. The ultimate goal here is to manage this crisis as effectively as possible and show the world that South Africa can remain a stable and attractive place for international investment even in these turbulent times. It's really about proving the resilience of our economic systems.
Which, of course, brings us to the final, crucial question. This perfect storm is a major, major test of our country's economic foundations and our ability to respond. We may very well get through this one, but the big question we're left with is this. Have we built an economy that's truly resilient enough for whatever the next storm might be?